Uh, so we have some original information, usually in the analog form, say video or whatever, and this information can be transmitted in the analog form without converting them into bits. Okay, or so there is no digital signal. I mean, you don't first convert it to digital form. So, and then you, I mean, without converting, you transmit. So that is completely analog communication. But these days, more commonly, you first convert into digital signal. I mean, the bit stream, the stream of zeros and ones, and then you transmit. So when you, I mean, transmit, you use one of these forms. Let me share this screen. See, it can be ASK, if FSK, sorry, or PSK. I mean, these things I think are already covered in the previous course. But just to help you understand that you need them when you are using digital communication. Okay, so uh, you have zeros and ones, so they have to be converted into, I mean, you have basically four options here: ASK, FSK, PSK, or COM. COM is a combination of ASK and PSK. Okay. So that's modulation into, I mean, your zeros and ones are, you covered these things before, right? ASK, FSK, PSK. Guys, were these
Yes,
things
sir.
covered before? Okay,
Yes, sir.
very good. So you get some signal, like say you see that we have two different amplitudes. Okay, or I mean, in FSQ, change the frequency. In PSK, PSK is very common. QAM is the most common version. Okay, so in this case, if you consider PSK, there is a sudden change in the phase, so you jump uh, in the instantaneous state of the signal. There is a sudden jump, but before you transmit, you need to filter out. There is some special type of filtering. I mean, this filtering on one side, of course, uh, smoothens your signal. I mean, some frequency component. But by filtering, we mean here reshaping in the frequency domain, and different forms of filterings used. But uh, at the end, you don't have any sudden change in the instantaneous state. Rather, you have a smooth in the time domain. You will have sort of smooth changes, and so you don't have very wide band. Okay, if you have, you know, for impulse, you have infinitely wide frequency spectrum. So as you have smooth changes in the time domain, you also limit the signal in the frequency domain, and that's what you have. Uh, you haven't yet modulated on the carrier. You're still with your information, and this information uh, has been converted into some some form of your uh, I mean some form which looks like analog signal. This look like analog signal, but they carry digital information, ASK, FSK, PSK, or whatever. Okay, so this signal will then be modulated on your carrier. You still have baseband transmission. Baseband mean when you don't modulate on a carrier, then it is baseband. Okay, so if you transmit this way, then it will be baseband transmission. And if you modulate, then on a carrier, then it will be broadband communication. Or so even the baseband transmission, it has some limited range of frequency, because after this conversion there is some filtering, which is usually not discussed, but because filtering is a separate discussion. Okay, and different types of filtering methods are particularly suggested for digital communication. Okay, like Nyquist filter. Nyquist Nyquist filter is used for 3G, the UMTS. Okay, it was very popular before. So that is used for reshaping the signal in the frequency domain. After you do this, this modulation. Okay, which you can call digital modulation. After the digital modulation, you have some filtering, and then you modulate on a carrier. So, when you are modulating on a carrier for wireless communication to launch in the air, the signal actually looks like analog. It is carrying digital information, but the signal looks like an analog signal. On the other hand, okay, maybe I write. Give me a second. Mhm. Oh, second, I have my output connected, but I need to. I just forgot how to share that screen. Do you see what I'm writing? Like A?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the case of analog communication, your original analog signal analog information is modulated on a carrier. On a carrier. And the examples are like AM, FM radio. Okay. So this is what you covered in the last semester. Okay, double sideband modulation or different things. So the original information was analog, and you modulate it on a carrier. But in the case of digital information, digital communication, your original analog info is first converted into digital info. Okay, and you know PCM or something is used there, right? Okay, so and thereafter you do what you may call digital modulation. Like ASK, FSK, PSK, QAM. Do you see I'm writing ASK, FSK, PSK, QAM?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it is then just modulated digital info or something. Okay. This one you then put on a carrier. Okay. Modulated info, modulated digital signal. This one you put on a carrier. Okay. And so the signal, okay, actually looks like analog. I mean, this signal, you know, I mean, when you, I mean, if we think of the wireless communication, you'll put on a carrier and then launch in the air using an antenna. So the antenna transmits, when you feed it into antenna, okay, and it is then feed you an antenna. So it looks like an analog signal. Here also it looks like an analog signal when you feed it into an antenna. Okay. But the bandwidth will be wider here because I mean your FSK, PSK, I mean this signals takes up wider. I mean it was originally digital signal. So there are the changes I mean in the time domain, as you know, is sort of sharp, although you're doing filtering and all that, but it is still wider. Okay, analog info has a narrower bandwidth. Anyway, you you I mean this is the basic difference between analog and digital modulation. Now another point I should mention here, that for digital in communication, the bit stream, okay, I mean another major difference between analog and digital communication is that in the case of analog info, you keep sending your analog information continuously, and the continuous information will be fed to the antenna, or it goes through the whole process. But here the digital communication can also have similarly bit stream, this digital information. Okay, after you do PCM, the digital information has some bit stream. It is a bit stream. But there will be at some stage you create a concept of packets. So digital communication invariably uses packetization, but it can be conceptually. Okay, you consider that up to, I mean, from this bit to this bit position forms one packet, and the next bit will belong to the next packet. Okay, so another packet starts and that stops somewhere. So you always have some packetization concept. Packets are sent one after another, and the different packets may be treated differently on its way. Okay, so that is the key advantage in digital communication, that you handle different packets. And I mean, yeah, we discussed before that different packets can be routed via different paths. So you can find out the paths which are free for a certain packet and route over there. So you can actually make better utilization of your resources. Resources mean the paths for communication. Okay. Some paths are uh, overcrowded, so don't use that. Route your packets in some other way. So all these are possible, and different things, like we also discussed the functions of TCP, like you are retransmitting a packet when it is lost. Um, so all these things are possible when you have the packetization. You can see in the analog communication, it's not possible that you lose some information and you retransmit. Can you do that? You cannot, right?
Yes, sir.
Similarly, even in digital communication, unless you packetize, you cannot take these advantages. Okay. You take different routes and reorder depending on their sequence numbers, that as we discussed in TCP, that you can only do when you have the packets. They have in the form of packets. You have them in the form of packets, and the packet you check whether all packets are received or not. And some packets are usually lost on the way, especially when you have a wireless link, so you need to retransmit them. So all these things are actually extensively used in real life because we have now digital communication. Got it? But I don't mean to say that I mean there is no use of analog communication. You know that AM, FM radio broadcast. Okay, it won't become completely obsolete anytime soon, but its use has got very limited already. Okay. Questions? Okay. Now we will discuss the relationship between the, I mean, when you have this digital communication, you have the, uh, I mean, in this bit stream, you have the rate in BPS, bit per second, right? Bits per second. That's the unit for your digital communication, digital data rate. Okay. So how is that related to the uh, frequency spectrum? Okay. I mean, in the case of analog info, you had the idea from last semester course, okay, that your analog info takes up some space in the, after you modulate. Okay. So that will be used in your, I mean, you will be from the government authority, you'll be allocated some frequency ranges, of course, in hertz. So how your data fits in there. So we will discuss that. I mean, we will proceed there. If you don't have any questions from this part, then I'll move from this screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You can move,
please.
sir.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Well, uh, yesterday we started talking about Shannon's capacity, uh, but that gives the maximum possible theoretical limit. Okay. Uh, we spoke of it because similar relationship you have in practice. Look at the formula for Shannon's capacity. This is what I spoke of yesterday. Very simple formula. C on the left side is the digital data rate in BPS, and then W, sometimes shown as B, is the spectrum, uh, or I mean the range of frequency in hertz. Okay, that you are using for sending this data. And then log 2 1 plus S by N. This S by N indicates your signal to noise ratio. I mean, where the numerator is the signal strength, okay, at the receiver of your desired signal. And the denominator is the signal strength within the same spectrum of any undesired signal you have. Okay, so when you are receiving, so there can be some undesired signal also in the same frequency spectrum. If you don't have signal from other sources, at least you have some noise from your own circuit. So there'll be some signal definitely, and so that makes you here S by N. Now, as Shannon depicts, I mean, this is the maximum possible data rate possible. But what do you mean by this maximum possible theoretical limit? Uh, what if you send even higher data rate? What will happen then? Well, most people are mistaken here in understanding the concept of Shannon's capacity. What he means here, this is the maximum data rate considering almost no errors at the receiving end. Okay. If you want to have some transmission with uh, with all bits correctly received at the receiving end, okay, I mean almost all bits, or arbitrarily small error probability. With this kind of transmission, okay, that you're sending all the bits successfully, this is what you can get at the maximum as your data rate. Okay, and practically practically there are two differences. First of all, people will never be able to reach this theoretical limit. This is just a benchmark. Okay, people are just getting closer and closer to this data rate as their technology is improving from 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. We have better and better technology, and so the uh, I mean practical data rate is getting closer and closer to this theoretical limit. Secondly, people don't operate with the with this arbitrarily small error probability. Practically, that's not the case. Okay, rather people allow their transmission, their communication system to be like something that can have error probability to some extent. We'll later show that usually this limit is set to 10%, 10% maximum. Okay, so I mean, deliberately they make their system which can lead to some error at the receiving end, not too much. The error probability is limited to a maximum of 10%. Okay. The reason people do that is that if you want to operate in a very perfect way, that you have almost no error, then actually you limit your data rate to a very low level from the transmitting end. If you can relax that, okay, some error I allow at the receiving end, then you can have much higher data rate at the transmitting end. You can push a lot more data. Like if you, don't care this Shannon's capacity, small error data rate, even higher, you can exceed this limit. Okay, so it is similar to that, but okay, let me finish the whole thing. So you use some, you allow some errors at the receiving end, not too much. So that errors you handle using packet retransmissions, which you discussed before. TCP does that. Actually, there can be retransmissions also from some uh, other protocol levels. Okay, so you use packet retransmissions at different stages to take care of the errors that you allowed yourself. Okay, so that way you actually optimize your data rate. You use little higher data rate. Okay, some errors you allow, but that you take care of using retransmission. Okay. However, with all these methods, after even allowing the data errors, the practical data rate uh, does not exceed this theoretical limit. Okay, uh, because because inherently, this is the error rate that you can allow after you. With when you are taking care of all the errors, when you're taking care of all the errors, uh, I mean, and you're limiting the errors. So inherently, it is taking. You have to actually combine the data you are pushing and your retransmission. Okay, you have to combine both of them, and then you have to compare with the Shannon's capacity. Anyway, things may look complex at this stage, but the bottom line is the practical data rate uh, is um, is something below this level given by Shannon's capacity C. Okay, so you have some data in BPS which is lower than C. C is your maximum data rate, and with 2G, 3G, 4G, you are achieving higher and higher data rate. But closer and closer to this level of C given by Shannon. Okay. However, maybe with 3G, you are like at 70% of C. Your data rate was 75%. With 4G, maybe you have got to 80% of C. Okay, but it will be some fraction of C with some level of technological strength. Okay, but after you set to a particular technological strength, maybe 4G, 3G, or whatever, then at that strength level, what else are affecting your data rate? So then you look at the parameters on the right hand side. There are only two parameters. This W and S by N or SNR, okay, signal to noise ratio. Once again, I just want to make sure, are all of you awake? I know I'm a boring teacher.
Yes, sir.
You
I'm
are?
Yes,
You are?
sir. We are
Okay.
awake.
So
Yes,
this is,
sir, we are awake, sir.
this is an important concept. Okay. Okay. Uh, if you respond anyway, actually, I can realize that you are awake because the sleeping people cannot respond. Okay. Anyway, so what I mean that for a particular level of technological strength, so okay, 2G, 3G, 4G, whatever, at a particular strength of, you are at a particular fraction of C level. Okay, 70%, 80%, whatever. So at that technological strength, the other things which are affecting your practical data rate is only, are only two, as you can see from the right hand side. So that's your spectrum, okay, whatever bandwidth you have. So this one is the actual bandwidth in hertz, okay. So from some frequency point, and you go up to another frequency point. And the other thing is SNR. If your signal to noise ratio is better, then also your practical data it will improve. Okay. So in total, you have three things: your technological strength, your frequency range, and your SNR. Okay. Now, in the case of mobile communication, you may experience some poor data rate when you are inside a building, you're at home. But as you step out of the building, your data rate may improve. Why is it so? Because your signal strength has improved, your SNR has improved. Okay. So your data rate will improve. Also, if the mobile operator allocates different amount of W to different people, so if it varies intentionally, so sometimes it can allow more W to you, recognizing that you need very high data rate, okay, compared to somebody else in the cell. So at that moment, because of higher W, you'll experience higher data rate. Now come to the technological strength. Sometimes you fall back to 3G and your data rate drops. Sometimes you are again put back on 4G. Okay, your data rate will improve. So all these three things are affecting your data rate. Okay. Now this how they may be related practically. Well, how this W and BPS? Well, as I said that after the ASK, FSK, or this kind of process, you have some filtering. So this filtering and this ASK, FSK, okay, these things are the primary things to tell you how much BPS and W, how they will be related. But of course, there are actually numerous factors in the technological strength. But these are some basic things. Like that, okay, normally if I think of just pure FSK, okay, you have zeros and ones and you use two different frequency levels. Or say BPSK. Do you remember BPSK, binary phase shift key?
Yes, sir.
You do. You QPSK, HPSK?
Yes, sir. Yes.
QAM, 16 QAM. Okay, okay, very good. So let's think of BPSK. Then you need two different phases for zeros and ones. Okay, for two binary states, you are using also two different phases. So there will, you don't combine multiple bits in one symbol. Just one bit, one symbol carries their one bit. So in that case, with say Nyquist filter, your BPS will be little smaller than your spectrum, than your bandwidth. Okay, like in the case of 3G UPS, okay, it uses QPSK, but the actual, in the bitrate count stage, you have five. I'm writing on the chat box. Where is the chat box? Oh, yeah. So in the spectrum is 5 megahertz wide. That's the spectrum, okay? And the actual, I mean, what do you say? I mean, in the basic level, well, if I call it symbol rate, okay, for now, I call it symbol rate. That is 3.84 MSPS. Okay. Now you see the frequency range that say Grameen or Robi, these operators lease from the government is 5 megahertz wide. The government allocates that your frequency range starts from this number and it goes up to this number, and that is 5 megahertz wide. Do you understand it clearly? Is there any confusion?
Sir, can you repeat this part, sir, again, kindly?
For example, I mean the spectrum, I mean that the spectrum, the bandwidth, okay, in hertz is 5 megahertz
Yes, sir.
for UMTS, for 3G operation. Say Robi, Grameen, okay, I mean they lease 5 megahertz for UMTS operation, for 3G operation. So the government leases like this, that your frequency starts from this limit, from this number, and it goes up to this number, and that will be 5 megahertz wide in hertz. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now it uses that within, I mean, as it sends its symbols one after another, okay, it sends 3.84 mega symbol per second. So you see that it is 5 mega, 5 into 10 to the power 6 hertz. And when you send the symbols, the rate is little smaller, 3.84 mega, 3.84 into 10 to the power 6 symbol per second. Got it? 5 and 3.84. You can compare that digital data rate is little smaller than this. I'm giving you these numbers to help you get an idea how this data rate and okay, C and W, or on this side you don't call it C when you use practical data rate. When you use practical data rate, it is called R. Okay, so R is smaller than C.
So is it because
sorry?
R is smaller than C? Is it because the destination, to identify the destination, the header and the
No. That's not the reason. It's because Shannon's capacity. This formula is actually completely theoretical. It's not a practical data rate. Okay. This formula is theoretical maximum possible data rate. The people will never be able to reach this level. They will just get closer and closer to that, okay, over time. But until doomsday, I mean, they may go up to 99%, but not 100. Okay, 100% of C. Anyway, so it gives you some idea about just to give you an idea about these numbers, how they're related. However, again, look at the chat box. UMTS uses QPSK. Okay. So QPSK means it fits 2 bits in one symbol. So the actual bit rate will be 2 into 3 into 84, right? Got it? The
So what were we talking? So initially the beat rate was 3.84.
The symbol rate was 3.84. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. So that is like
yeah,
we just supposed it to be like that.
right.
Assumed it to be like that.
Right.
And
Right.
now we have moved on to QPSK.
QPSK, but it uses QPSK. Okay.
Okay.
So it is actually 2 into 3.84. So that is the actual bit rate. That's the actual bit rate you have here. You have there
Okay.
for UMTS. Okay. Now, in the Shannon's capacity, we are actually talking about the ultimate bit rate. After you consider, because in a symbol, you can fit in even 10 bits. Even 10 bits, you can. The present day, okay, 5G supports up to 1024 QAM, which means you fit 10 bits in one symbol. That's the most recent release of, I mean, I would say it in the specifications released in 2000. I mean, just 2 years ago, the release that came out allows up to the use of not even 2 years, less than 2 years. Okay, so the most recent releases of cellular specifications allow up to the 1024 QAM. Okay, so anyway, so even after the use of all these things, the maximum bit rate you get, okay, when you calculate up the bit rate, you I mean you will be below Shannon's capacity. So probably now you get some idea how the bit rate can be related to your W. So I mean it can be, say, I mean these days it can be several times your W. So your W may be 5 megahertz, but the bit rate can be 10 Mbps, or maybe use yeah, say 5 megahertz, your bitrate can be 10 Mbps, 12 Mbps, 14 Mbps, 15 Mbps. Okay, so like 20 Mbps. So if it is 15, then it is already, I mean, oh, very high, very, very high. Okay, got it?
Yes, sir.
So that is called spectral efficiency. So the last term we want to discuss now is spectral efficiency. Its unit is BPS per hertz. So how much bit per second you can fit in particular frequency range, BPS per hertz. And that is the key achievement in the technological technological advancement. Say over the improvement of communication technologies, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, or okay, which involve actually improvement in thousands of different areas. Okay, the communication system incorporates thousands of different things. So their holistic improvement improves your spectral efficiency ultimately. And that is what I mean. You see in the case of 2G, people, I mean, over 13 band. I mean,
So you broke up, sir. You broke up a little bit, sir.
Oh,
Could you
really?
repeat, sir? Yes,
Yeah,
just
sure. I mean, say I mean, the operators, the cellular operators, release the same amount of spectrum in hertz from the government when they use 2G, 3G, 4G, and all that. But in the case of 2G, the BPS they could deliver, the data they could deliver was very low. In 3G, it further improved. In 4G, I mean, it is improved. It has been improving. In 3G, it improved. In 4G, it further improved. Okay, so the spectral efficiency is improving. Over the same frequency spectrum, it is capable of delivering higher and higher data rate. Okay, so that's an indication. I mean, if I look at this, I mean, the, I mean, we should be able to, let us visualize. Okay, let us just visualize in place of, although I haven't written like that, and just consider. I'm sorry, I got disconnected. My internet connection is poor today. Do you hear me now?
Sir, yes, hear you, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
but I got
Now we
this.
can, sir. But sir, we
Okay,
could. Yes, sir.
yeah, you missed something.
Yes.
So I'll go back there. So let's assume that you have some practical data at here, R, which may be a fraction of C, maybe say 0.7 C. Okay, so that's your R, that's your practical data. So that R by W will be your BPS per hertz. So that is your I mean spectral efficiency. But if somebody has some R which is 0.8 C, okay, then his spectral efficiency will be higher. Okay, how much? The bottom line is how much data rate you can deliver over certain bandwidth over every hertz represents your technological strength, and that is getting 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, in this 4G 5G days.
So, sir, as we are moving like from that QPSK from different schemes then to COM, and every time the number of beats increasing, so that is increasing our efficiency.
Spectral efficiency, definitely, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just one factor. This way there are many other factors which can improve your spectral efficiency. Okay. So this is our background discussion. This discussion applies to any communication, wired or wireless. Now we'll go back to our slide, which we started discussing yesterday. Actually, we went up to this level. Okay. So we found so many advantages. Oh. With the low frequency. Do you see the slide use of high frequencies?
Yes. No, sir. We're at cost
No, you
of
don't.
equipment.
Oh. Sorry. Give me a second. Okay, now you see use of high frequencies. Do you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there are so many advantages with low frequencies, as we discussed yesterday. People are moving towards the use of higher and higher frequencies. So actually, I asked you why. So your answer was the use of smaller antenna, but there's a more important cause. That is one reason, but there's another reason. Can you tell me? I'll move to that slide, but let me see if you can answer.
So I think in the higher frequency range, it gets less polluted with noise, because while transferring the data in lower frequencies, there may be some noise created by faulty switches and others.
No, that's not the reason. Well, actually, I now remember that you answered it already yesterday. Yeah, yesterday you answered it already. It's not the spectral efficiency either. Is the bandwidth. In the I mean, we're discussing the Shannon's capacity. We found that W, okay, linearly affects your data rate. So if you have wider W, you have just, if your W is double, your data will also be double. Now, the lower numbers, it's all about number. I mean, the low frequencies are all mostly occupied. And so you have to go for higher frequencies because they are still available. And here, I mean, you need to understand that it's all about numbers, right? I'll again go back to my writing pad. Sorry. Okay. See, when you have a certain bandwidth around 1 kilohertz, okay, so how much bandwidth you can afford there? You can accommodate. Around 1 kilohertz, it could be, I mean, you have to, it has to take up some space on the two sides. So maybe as 100 hertz you can take on the two sides, or if you 100 hertz, right? That's the maximum you can accommodate. But if you think of your carrier frequency 1 megahertz, then say, I mean, in this case, if it was 200 hertz, okay, around 1 megahertz, 200 hertz is nothing. It's a very small percentage, okay, around this carrier frequency level. Even here, 10 kilohertz, okay, or say 20 kilohertz bandwidth, sorry, 20 kilohertz bandwidth, probably you can comfortably accommodate, right? Are you getting my point?
Yes,
guys?
Yes, sir.
So you see that much wider bandwidth, because around 1 megahertz, you have so much space available. Now think of, think of,
sir, the 20 kilohertz represents what data and 1 megahertz represents what data?
that is your, I mean, there's the bandwidth allocated to you for transmission of your data. 20
And so
megahertz
the 20
range.
kilohertz
20 kilohertz. Okay. I mean, I just wanna, I mean, make it clear. Say if you consider some carrier frequency, because when you modulate, you put it on a carrier.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So if the carrier frequency is much higher, like if you go to some frequency range, okay, bandwidth around 100 megahertz, then you see you have so much space available. You can even allocate some bandwidth in the order of megahertz, because you have so much space available on the two sides. So many different applications you can accommodate here. You can fit in many different applications. Each may be taking up 1 megahertz bandwidth. Right? Say 1 megahertz bandwidth, another 1 megahertz bandwidth, 1 megahertz, several. I'm sorry. Alhamdulillah. 1 megahertz bandwidth, different. So you just imagine, compared to 20 kilohertz, now you can afford 1 megahertz bandwidth for your transmission, as the bandwidth of each of your transmissions. But if it is 1 gigahertz, then even 1 megahertz is nothing there. Tens of megahertz probably you can accommodate. Think of 100 gigahertz. So as you increase your number, it's all about numbers. As you go to higher numbers, you have much wider spaces available around yourself. Just 1% of 1 gigahertz is a lot, right?
Yes, sir.
1% of 1 gigahertz will be 10 megahertz. Okay, so that's why you have more spaces available. So now, I mean, the cellular applications were using frequencies below 3 gigahertz, and they were all just combating for a few megahertz, 5 megahertz, 10 megahertz bandwidth. I mean, this Grameen and other operators, they had only 10 megahertz. Now they are getting more. So but if you can switch to say 30 gigahertz, so much space available, a lot of bandwidth is available there, so many applications you can fit in there. And also it's more you'll find a lot of spaces empty, because most people want to operate at low frequencies. So people are keen to operate at low frequencies. That's one reason. Secondly, at lower frequencies, you have very compact space available. Okay. Okay, so if you go to, so that's what I wanted to mention here. You see the use of high frequencies slide now, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So see the first one, low frequencies are mostly occupied. The bandwidth requirement is typically much wider. The larger bandwidth, the more difficult it is. Okay, so you have actually more spaces available. Okay, now I mentioned that 6 gigahertz up to 4.5 for 5G, up to 100 gigahertz. Do you see this screen? I'm not sure it is operating differently.
No, sir, we don't know.
No, sir, it's not loading.
It's working differently. I don't know why. Anyway, so now you see, right? At least, I mean, I'm not.
Yes, sir.
Presentations.
Yes, sir. Now we see, sir.
5G allows up to 100 gigahertz. Okay, and in the okay, do you have another class now?
No, sir, but after some time we have.
After some time you have. Then, I mean, this particular slide I'll discuss the next day.
Okay, yes,
but
yes.
I need to ask you something. Okay, I mean, one particular thing I want to address as our last point today. Well, you modulate your signal to a high frequency because, I mean, just go back to the first slide, the early slides, why you need modulation. To separate your transmissions from different sources. Okay. Well, do you have this necessity? And the second reason is the use of smaller antennas. Okay. Now think of wired communication. Do you have these reasons there? If you want to use wired communication?
So antenna is not there.
Antenna is not there. Yeah, definitely. Now, what about the first reason?
Sir, I think wired is much more dedicated. So
Yes.
if the wire is dedicated to, I mean, one
Carrier,
sender one
and
Go ahead.
you say.
Yeah,
a wire is
finish, please.
A wire is dedicated medium. So
right.
As a wire is dedicated medium, I have one sender and one receiver. So I don't actually need the modulation, I think.
Exactly. By the way, what's your student number?
139, sir.
139. I can't grade you A plus right away. I mean,
thank you, sir.
But you're absolutely right. Okay. So it's, I mean, you have explained it already. I hope everybody has understood. Okay. So now you tell me, would you do modulation?
In
Say,
where?
yeah, I mean, let's take two examples. The land phones, okay, and Ethernet.
Yes, sir.
So for these cases, is there any modulation?
I think not. I mean,
Right,
there
you are
may be.
right. You're right. Don't go further. I mean, you are already right. So restrict yourself to the correct answer.
Yes.
Okay. So actually, the modulation. I mean, there are other types of modulation, like I say that digital modulation or something, right? So this is those are also some kinds of modulations. That's different thing. But modulating on a high frequency carrier is not necessary for baseband, I mean, for wired communication, when you have dedicated communication. Okay, data communication and wired communication, you're not using antenna, then you need that. So why would you do? So for your land phones, modulation is not used. For Ethernet, modulation is not used. And when you don't modulate on a high frequency carrier, it is called baseband transmission. I'm writing in the chat box. It is called baseband transmission.
Sir, can you repeat the
Yeah, I have written it already in the chat box.
reason kindly once again? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, there is no reason any. There is no reason anyway. I mean, you need modulation for two purposes, right? We discussed the two purposes.
Yes, sir. The one is the carrier frequency to carry multiple data, and another one is the antenna.
I mean, when you use antenna, you launch in the air.
Yes, sir.
Which is available with everybody. So other people are also using the same air. If you had particular air space dedicated for yourself, that's different thing. Okay. I mean, so air is open to everybody. So other people also be launching. So they will interfere. The signals will interfere. That is why you need to, I mean, everybody needs to transmit at different frequencies. You need to separate their transmissions, separate, you modulate onto different frequencies. Okay. Like the FM radio broadcasting stations are doing. But when you are using, when each of these sources are using separate wires, then they have their own dedicated communication path. They are not launching in the same space. They're not launching their signal in the same space. They have their own dedicated path for sending their data. So they don't need, actually, I mean, they don't run into that problem. And secondly, they are not using any antenna either. It's the use of wire. So none of the two reasons for modulation exists here. So if you don't, I mean, if the purpose of modulation is not there, why would you do that? So you don't do. So Ethernet does not use a modulation to high frequency carrier. And okay. So these are using coaxial. If you also use coaxial cable, we had three types: twisted pair. I mean copper twisted pair. By I mean copper made cables. Okay. So copper wires or twisted pair cables, and then coaxial cable. Okay. So most likely you don't do any modulation there. I mean you may do purposely for some cases, but most likely you don't do any modulation for them. Now think of optical fiber. Would you do modulation there when you use optical fiber?
That is also through a cable, sir, right, sir? So
yeah, it is.
So therefore, sir, I don't think modulation will be required.
Okay, what does 130? What does 139 think?
Sir, as I know, as far I know, optical fiber is is very expensive, and it's actually under the sea.
I'm
One optical fiber is used by many users, I think. As it is a common media.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So I
You're
think
right.
their modulation, I think their
Yeah,
modulation is needed.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's actually a correct answer. But if there is a dedicated optical fiber communication between you, I mean, there can also be optical fibers are also sometimes used for point-to-point communication
No,
between
point to
just
point.
between,
No, sir. I
if you,
think if a point to point communication is done by an optical fiber, I think there's no need of.
I
modulate.
was sir, I was indicating that one. So I guess
Okay,
that thing he
okay,
just mentioned. Sir. Yeah.
okay. But 314, okay, you're not correct. I mean, even with this answer,
Okay, sir.
even
Okay.
for point-to-point communication.
Like I said, the optical cable that comes to our house, sir. So that is undergoing modulation.
Yeah, it is. Why is it
Oh,
using? Why you need there?
I
Anybody
don't know.
else?
I thought it was like
Because your original information is at low frequencies, right? Original information has low frequency range. Optical fiber uses frequencies in the optical range in terahertz. So, I mean, when you spoke of baseband transmission, you're sending your information directly without translating into higher frequency. So baseband transmission uses very low frequencies, like your land phones. Okay, they use frequencies like up to 4 kilohertz because you're sending your voice, and voice takes up to 4 kilohertz. So just from 0 to 4 kilohertz spectrum you're using there. So if you put it on an optical fiber, where it go? Optical
No, sir.
fiber, in optical fiber, you actually use signal electromagnetic wave in the optical range. Actually, it's light. So you have to raise it to that high frequency, right? So translating into higher frequency is a requirement here because it does not support the low frequency range. Optical fiber does not support the low frequency range. Radio frequencies are not supported there. It's a different type of cable. It does not support low frequency ranges. It supports high and actually very, very, very high in the order of terahertz. Got it? So it's not only translating to high frequency, actually translating into very, very high frequency. So you actually need modulation into higher carrier. Got it? Even for point to point, even for communication between 2 points, you need
Yes.
their modulation into higher frequency. Okay. And of course, one optical fiber, that is called WDM. They call where, the different carriers are actually put together on one optical fiber. Okay.
So, sir, the reason for modulation is different here, right, sir?
Right. The major
reason is different because for wireless communication, the reason was that we needed smaller antenna size, then we needed
you need to separate
the
transmissions. Separate the transmissions.
Just because the transmission is in the optical region, so it has to be modular.
Yeah, but of course the second reason is also there, as 139 said, which they call WDM, wavelength division multiplexing. Different people will be using different frequencies, but optical guys, for some reasons instead of frequency they use the term wavelength. Okay, so different people will be using different frequency ranges, but they think of it in terms of different wavelengths, so they call it WDM. Different carriers will be there. So these are the two reasons. Okay. Anything else? Okay. The next week we will have off. Okay. It will be holidays because of Eid. So I'll see you the week in the week after the next. Okay, and the lab class we may take in the same week. I'll discuss with other teachers and said if we, I think we can take. I think we have enough background already. I wanted to discuss antenna part little bit. Maybe I think it is better. We have another. We discuss few things, and then we go for a lab class. Okay, so maybe we can skip another week. And so I mean, in the week after the next, we'll meet for our theory classes anyway. So, but we may not take our lab class in the same week. We may go for which is the third week from now. Okay, for a lab class. Okay, so that will then few things will be clear, and that will help in our lab class. Okay, anything?
Sir, regarding the attendance, sir, sir, how are you taking the attendance, sir? Because the last few classes,
you know what? I am forgetting every day. I'm forgetting every day.
Okay.
So,
yes, sir.
so I've really got old.
So, sir, how will we
now
make up for the other days, sir?
If I so for the last few classes, I need to show all of you present. But today, would you mind if I use the Google Classroom and ask you to write your ID?
We can write the ID in the chat, sir, right?
That will, I mean, if it is on Google Classroom,
yes, sir. Okay,
it
so
will
we
be
can do
easier
that
for me to
it's
type.
better. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then I have already posted. It is. Oh, sorry, I haven't. Oh man, what? How may I do that? Question. Okay, I have done it. So I think we can wrap up now. You can just write in your student ID in Google Classroom, and we can wrap up here, right?
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Alaikum assalam. Thank you very much.